I'm Zan.
And I paint all sorts of pets.
Today we're going to be painting a very special dog named Harley. Harley's portrait was commissioned by a gentleman in Victoria as a gift for his wife. Now, what I love about the reference photo here is that you can really see the love in Harley's eyes. And that's what I want to capture in this portrait the most. The other thing that works beautifully here is that Harley's face is lit from the side. Kind of like that. Later on, I'll show you my favorite technique for making side lighting work amazingly well using gray paint. Now, that's great lighting for any kind of portrait, but I particularly like side lighting when I'm painting white dogs or black dogs or any animal that's all kind of one color, because it really helps show the contours of their face, and it helps give that impression of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface. So I'm going to be working on a little 12 by 12 today, and I'm hoping that I can get that depth that I want, that I see in the reference photo. The illusion of depth is one of my favorite pursuits as a painter, so today we get to give it a try. For this painting, because I'm painting a black and white dog, I'm going to be using a lot of black and white paint. But also, that middle gray is going to be super, super helpful because every time I want to check and see, am I being too light, too dark, I can use middle gray to kind of check myself and make sure that if, let's say I'm working in the shadows and gray is the lightest I should really be going, I can use that as white. And same is true for the opposite. When I'm working in a really bright area and I know I'm never going to hit true black, I can use my gray as black. And my darks and lights are going to look so much more realistic by doing this. So the other thing I'm going to add a little bit of brown. Nice dark brown. Technically this is a burnt umber, so it might be showing up as black there, but honestly I think of brown as dark brown, light brown, reddish brown, greenish brown, which I don't like. But if you're trying to buy paint, the technical names can be helpful. There. All right, let's get the outline started for this guy, hey? Now what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get the big outside edges in first so I can see kind of where his face is, and then eyes and nose, different features. And then after that, on shadows and lighting. That's looking kind of dog-like. Now I'm going to check my work and see if his face is actually where I'm hoping it will be. That's looking pretty close, but I want to make a couple adjustments here. For one thing, his nose is not quite big enough. For another, some of these edges aren't lining up. But as soon as I've got that down, I can move on from the outline and start blocking in some big areas of light and dark. Right, time to move on to a bigger brush. Let's go for something more this size. Now, what I'm shooting for here is to get the big dark areas and light areas in. So this whole side of his face is in shadow. Now here's something you'll see with me a lot. I have one brush in one hand, one brush in the other. Switch all the time. It's just a really nice fast way to switch colors. Now I'm bringing in a bit of cool gray for this shadow here. And something interesting you'll notice as I do so, these areas that I gently painted a dark color, in contrast with this even darker gray, they suddenly are the lights. They look almost white. That's the effect I'm going for when I'm trying to paint the lights in the shadow. And I see I'm almost getting to black on this side here, despite the fact that it's white fur we're painting. That always kind of weirds me out, but it'll work in the end. Get some of the brown in that nose. So here's the fun part, the background. I like this because it's always really fast. Lots of paint on there, and it's the first time you get to see canvas as a 3D thing. Start extending the image around the side here. Chunk of something. Yeah. I'm going to try to get all of these big areas of light and dark right first, before working on any of the details, main areas of Harley's face. That's why you can see I'm still using a really big brush for most of this. Once an area of canvas is covered, I can start going in and picking out little highlights or lowlights that will be the basis of fur texture later on. All right, let's focus in on the eyes here. I'm going to start refining what I have on canvas. So the first thing I'm seeing is that in this section here, I've got too much contrast. I think the darks are right, but the lights are too light here and here. These lights should probably only be showing up on the light side of his face.
Let's see if I'm right. Yep, this one looks pretty good. But when I bring these two over, man, that just makes that darker gray look so dark. Isn't it incredible that by placing a lighter color near a darker color, you can make a darker color look so much darker? And the opposite is true too. By darkening these lights, that shadow is not going to look so deep anymore. Let's try it out. That 50% gray from earlier looks almost white here. So let's add some black and tone down these bright spots. Now if I bring that same color over here, it's going to look very dark. So I'm going to need to lighten that up a little bit. There we go. All right, now this is no longer pure black. This is now going into gray because we're getting into the lower lids. There's a little bit of highlight going on. There we go. Now we just got that big white blob in there to get rid of. Some of that will turn into shine. Not all of it. At last, we're getting into some of the texture. I'm adding all these individual hairs almost one by one. The brush texture helps though. It's also kind of made of fur, so it feels fitting that I'm painting fur with it. Let's add just a couple specular highlights, reflective highlights. And I think that'll be him done. One right there, make that nose look wet. Maybe a couple more hairs across the eye. There we are. How's that looking? When you look at the final painting and the reference photos side by side, you'll start to notice a lot of differences. For one thing, I've added a lot more contrast than was present in the original photo. And that's because I like having a full range of darkest darks to lightest lights in my paintings. That's one of those things that makes a painting look more realistic, because our eyes try to do that. Now, when I pick this guy up, I'm being careful not to touch the edges. The reason for that is that even though some areas of the painting are not too sticky to touch, the overall piece will take 3 or 4 days to dry, as it usually does with oil paintings.
Another interesting thing about oil paintings is that they don't change color as they dry. Most paints will darken. I don't know if you ever painted your house and then you go over it with fresh paint and it's a lot lighter. That will not happen with oil paints. So what you see is what you get. Thanks for joining me today in the Paws by Zann studio on Shaw Spotlight. I'll see you next time.